Thank you. So thank you for having me. Very exciting platform. It's been an amazing couple days. And what I'll try to talk to you today is how to transform your company to tell better stories, basically with data. So it all starts with content eventually, or data or storage. And we all had our, oh my God, moment. This is maybe how your data structure sometimes could look like. Different genres, different colors, different topics, different ideas. And I think the first step to be able to tell a data story is to do those 4 things. You need to acquire the data, you need to enrich it, you need to assemble, and eventually you want to distribute the data. So once we organized our messy library and enriched it, assemble, we're ready to start using data and tell some stories. And I have a few suggestions on how to start thinking about data storytelling. The first one is develop a roadmap for data literacy. So basically, everybody in the organization should be trained. You should have enough educational programs internally. You need to help teams realize the value that can come from insights and storytelling. And it's not just about having access to data. It's actually understanding how to get there, how to use it, how to leverage those insights. And eventually, every team member in the organization need to have access to some sort of an analytics tool and be able to speak the language, if you will, of analytics. The second part will be creating a culture, but with a targeted approach. You can go after the entire organization, small or big, it doesn't matter. You need to start somewhere, and you actually want to identify and apply the resources to a high impact business area. So if your marketing department takes the initiative, if your engineering group decides that they're the most capable and resourced at that point in time to start creating that culture, figure out who's the most high impact business area that you want to start with, and help them realize the assets that are in their data, and try to help them get there in the shortest amount of time. And eventually, you want them to be the champions. If they were so successful in such a short time, they need to communicate the benefits of how their department, how their function improved using data as an asset, and being able to tell the story or understand the values in their organization. And the last part is actually democratizing access. And this is a big term, and I know we're limited in time, so I don't want to go too deep, but democratization of insights from analytics is probably one of the most important part that you should think of once you decided that data is going to be the way you drive your business. We're all sometimes scared from letting people dive into data, or sometimes worried that data will go to areas we're not so interested that it will get to. And there are ways to govern and make sure it doesn't happen, but democratizing access to insights and analytics makes sure that eventually your organization becomes data-driven, and your organization can start talking the language of data and actually becoming a better storytellers using data. And maybe something that is a little bit outside of that scope, but everybody's talking about single version of the truth. We probably all have been in meetings where instead of talking about insights, we're talking about the accuracy of data and the tools we're using, and how do we tell a consistent story. If you think about maybe a production line versus sales versus marketing versus finance, and each one comes with their own little universe, and their numbers are not necessarily in line with the numbers that other functions are sharing, then it becomes a problem. It becomes very challenging, and then it creates either a big question around the data and the accuracy of the data, or there's just no alignment. So single version of the truth is probably a super important phenomenon that we need to keep in mind when we start thinking about becoming data-driven and eventually using data to tell stories. So once we've done all of that, we're ready to tell the story to our organization. And in God we trust, but for everything else, we do got data. And I want to show you, we're very short in time, and I think that it's going to be difficult to run through very detailed demos of how you can tell stories. But I did want to show you maybe 3 major examples of how you can tell data stories. The first one is, probably something that each of us already used or saw or has implemented in our organizations, and that's just basically presenting data using dashboards. The second part, or the second introduction to something that we like to call using data as the storyteller versus presenting it. How do you change visuals? How do you choose the right feature that can describe the story you're trying to tell? And the third one, I'll try to give you a little demo on how you can actually have a conversation with your data using NLP and chatbots and stuff like that would allow you to start telling stories, interact with data, and hopefully tell better stories. So I just need to change gears here. I hope you can see my dashboards. So, COVID times, I'm sure that you all heard all the stories that are out there. But what's interesting with the data that we're being shared across different platforms and media and mediums around COVID is that the numbers can be super confusing. And I think it's a great example of how data can be manipulated to tell different stories based on different agendas without picking any specific, country or any specific trend. I think that it's super interesting in nowadays with COVID to understand that eventually the way we use the numbers to tell the story could eventually change the narrative. So, you can look at a simple dashboard. You can add all kinds of attributes from the World Bank to life expectancy to the size of the population by age group, by region, by country, by territory, by growth rates, and so on. And each one of those hierarchies or members that we're adding into the mix would change the narrative and would allow us to tell a different story. And sometimes the same data can allow us to tell either a positive story or a negative story. And I think that we're all experiencing it in, definitely in COVID times today. So this is just, a collection of dashboards around COVID, and I don't want to go and tell the COVID story, but it's I think an interesting concept to think about when you go back to your work life. Think about how many times you saw the same story from, I don't know, in the newspaper, on a website, maybe on other means of communication around COVID that looked completely different, and the logic didn't really make sense. So I think when you start thinking about it, it's super, as a data geek, I think it's super exciting, the things that you can actually start doing with data. The second example that I wanted to show today, this is an attempt to do market basket analysis, basically using Python, using algorithms to try and predict what people will purchase alongside other items that they're using. And obviously, as you can see, the grid is kind of useless. I can maybe, if I'm really super into the details, I can appreciate and understand what's going on. But eventually, if I will go in and maybe change the interface from a grid to a network chart, then all of a sudden I can see that this is the afternoon, and people that are buying coffee will buy other items and if I change it from the afternoon maybe to night, then we'll see different associations. And that's another way to tell a data story, but choosing the right mechanics and choosing the right visual to help us actually understand the connections between the things that are hidden in the data. What are the insights that we're trying to capture? So this is yet another interesting overview of how you tell a story, even if it's complicated and it's Python and it's the next best offer, it's a market basket analysis, it's in the cutting edge of maybe predictive and to a certain degree even prescriptive analytics. But still, if you can simplify it in the way you want to tell the story, it could resonate really well with even non-professional users like myself. And the third example I want to provide today, this is a sales dashboard. No, we won't go into the details too much, but I wanted to show you another way of actually having a conversation with your data. So we'll go in and open a chatbot. And I actually want to look only on 2020. So we'll say focus on 2020. And I hope it's going to work. And then, you know what, how about we look at it as a grid? So I'll ask to change to a grid. And all of a sudden it did that. And you know what, I don't want to see returns because it's not so helpful for me. So we're going in and please remove returns. And you can see that it already kind of knows what I want to do. Thank you very much. So it removed returns. But now I do want to do returns in dollars. So please add returns, and we'll choose returns dollars. And here we go. I can actually go in and maybe reset it for a second and show you how it works. So the idea is that you can see all the members. You can go in and check your hierarchies as well. But let's go back to our example, and let's pick up the top 3 manufacturers. And let's do it by return dollars. So again, it remembers what I want to do. And here we start to have another conversation with our data. You know what? It's not so useful to see it in a pie chart. So let's change to a grid, please. And here we go. And how about we add some forecasting? So why don't we do forecast return dollars, let's say for 3 quarters. And here we go, and we have our forecast here, and so on and so forth. And we can start having some serious, meaningful conversations with our data. And without even really being a developer or an expert, I can, for the most part, use very, very basic sentences to ask my data questions and get response. It can be in the high end of predictions and forecasting, but this is an example of NLP and chatbots and AI and predictions all together, helping us, again, have a conversation with data. So I'll go back to the deck. Hopefully I can. And basically, that's it.
Amazing, Omri. Thank you so much for this. I'm going to remove your screen and actually hop over to the questions and comments. First off, I want to say I love all those dashboards. I think the third example, that sales dashboard, was my favorite. It looks more like what I used to work on in my prior roles, and definitely love that interactive chat. I don't think I've seen that feature before from Pyramid. So is this a new thing that you guys just built?
Well, it's not new, but we definitely start to see more and more uptake of people wanting to have chatbot conversations with data. And because we're a robust platform, end-to-end solution, we can actually tap the chatbot into everything that we're doing.
Awesome. All right. So you ready for questions?
I hope so, depending on the questions.
Let's do it. First one from Alexandra. How do you initiate and encourage people to take ownership of their data and have them tell their story of their data?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, like in management and with lots of things, I think that the carrot and the stick, sorry for that so obvious answer, but we're definitely, I can say from personal experience, we're definitely encouraging people through, first of all, exposing data. So we're doing every meeting that we have using dashboards and using data. There's no pen and paper. There's no side tools. It needs to be a single tool. So everybody needs to come prepared. And if you don't, you kind of come up with egg on your face. And the second part is that we believe that if it's not in the data, it never happened. And that could lead to lots of outcomes. If you never solved it because it's not in the data, then we're going to have an interesting conversation.
Yeah, that makes sense. If it's not on record, it never happened, right? Awesome. So earlier in your presentation, you mentioned the single source of truth. So Kathleen is asking, what do you recommend to bring disparate areas into one single source of truth?
So I don't want to sit here and promote any specific platform in the market. But I will say that our philosophy is that eventually you have one CRM, right? You're not working in 5 CRM tools. You have one ERP system. You're not looking at different tools. BI and analytics are tier 1 must-have applications today. All the big companies that are leading of their categories did it because they're data-driven. And eventually, there's going to be a consolidation of analytics tools to a single platform. And we're trying to think about a platform as a strategic solution versus a tactical tool to solve a specific function.
Okay, got it. Thank you for that. A lot of comments from people saying they like the chatbot feature.
Thank you.
Kimberly's asking if you plan to add voice commands. Can I just say, I don't want a bar chart. I want a grid. Yes?
It's already in there. You can definitely speak to our chatbot.
Why couldn't you demo that in the very long time that you had, Omri?
It doesn't recognize my accent.
Oh, that's funny. That's so funny. All right, let's see. A question here. Oh, yeah, more comments about the chatbot. People really love that feature. Babuk is asking, how do you rate any dashboard based on features used or by simplicity that a layman person can understand?
It's a great question, and I think there are lots of great guidelines on how to build a good dashboard. I will say that anything that has more than 4 or 5 KPIs, and whatever the KPI is, if it's a grid or a chart or a pie chart or a drop-down, is too complicated. So I will say try to come up with the minimum needed number of visualizations or tools into a single dashboard.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Keep the audience focused. Don't overwhelm them. I know the answer to this, but I'll let you respond. What data visualization tools did you use for this dashboard?
So I use Pyramid Analytics. We like to drink our own champagne. We don't eat our own dog food. We don't like dog food, but we do drink our own champagne. So I was using Pyramid Analytics.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Is there a trial version people can get of Pyramid if they want to check it out?
PyramidAnalytics.com, and you can definitely get your hands on a Pyramid Analytics license.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, moving on. Charisma. How do you help educate others in the business to understand the value of a data story instead of just providing data?
So I think, people are motivated by wins and quick wins. So I think what we see our customers are doing, they educate a small group of champions that immediately can demo, and immediately can be, a few weeks or a few months, sometimes even longer, but that's kind of quick. And they can show progress and improvements of their function or unit or business unit in using data. And I think that buys in everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of questions here around what you think is the most important thing that people miss out from storytelling, right? So what are some common mistakes people make when trying to tell stories?
So I think, again, I think simple stories will resonate the most. And I think sometimes people get lost in the weeds and try to bring in too many dots and connect 50,000 ideas, and eventually you get lost. So I would say try to make it super simple, make your point, move on maybe to the next story.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just keep things moving. Let's see. Voice recognition, insane. Yeah, so people are saying this is crazy. They love that voice recognition. There is an interesting question on that, though. Is there a cheat sheet to know which keywords the chatbot understands? Because you can't just say sales or revenue, right? Or can you?
So first of all, the NLP engine that we developed is pretty robust. I think for the most part, it would understand the majority of it. It will appreciate if you say please and thank you. I think it would be pleased with that. But for the most part, it's free language.
That's pretty funny, because when you were typing, you said please remove. You didn't type it, but I heard you say it. I thought that was nice.
True. That's
you
true.
need good manners, even in
I'm
data.
a faster speaker than a typer. That's the problem.
Yeah, I think I type faster than I think. So we have time for one last question here from Ina. So she says, Omri, do you think a dashboard is enough for a non-analytical person to extract insights, or do you think having a designated analyst is preferable?
So eventually, I think that we're all data-driven people, and I don't think you need to be an expert. On the contrary, I think the best dashboard would be the one that you don't need to have any preliminary knowledge. You just go in, you look at it, you play with it a little bit, and you understand the insights. That would be, for me, the kind of the test for a good dashboard.
Got it. Thank you so much. So I think we are at time, even though the questions keep coming. If maybe you or somebody from your team has some time to hop on LinkedIn and respond to some of those, that would be great. But Omri, thank you so much for the time. It felt like it flew really fast this morning.
It did.
Yes.
Especially for me.
Especially for you, because you were speaking, right? I'm standing. So it does feel like longer, but at the same time, it flew by for me this morning. So thank you again for your time. I'll see you online, and I'm going to go ahead and bring on our next speaker.